What's up, Bills fans? Offseason started yet? Bored. Still 6 days away from free agency, almost 2 months from the draft. What's going on? Jeez, what the hell? Uh, I guess they didn't feel like waiting. It was an interesting, maybe definitely under 24 hours. I believe news of McCoy and Kiko came down around seven last night, and then the Cassel news broke early this afternoon. I want to say around noontime. So it was a fairly active, less than 24 hours for the Buffalo Bills front office. Um, they wanted to get some things in order, had some assets that they felt like they could move to do that. Um, Kiko being one of them. Granted, he had a very good rookie year. Sort of hit a rookie wall, but I mean that's to be expected. He played every down as a rookie. I think it wore on him a little bit too. I think it did lend itself to because he had the hip, and then he ended up tearing his ACL, unfortunately, in the training, um, off-season training that he was doing away from One Bills Drive. And now, who would have known that Patriots game to well over 2 years ago would have been the last time we saw Kiko in a Bills uniform, traded for LeSean McCoy. A lot of Bills fans speculated what they were going to do at running back. It was such an interesting dynamic the way the trade went down because it was announced, and CJ Spiller had been off and on NFL Network all day. Like I guess he was in studio live with them, his impending free agency, and then having the trade come down. That just the news alone signaled his end as a Buffalo Bill. But then having said on air that somebody from the organization called him and thanked him, pretty much sealed the deal. And it's kind of an interesting look inside to see how the business works, or that it is a business, and these football players are pretty much their own entities. And then, of course, a lot of speculation, yes, off about who got the better of the deal, who's going to win the deal. It's always about who wins what or who gets the better of what. I feel it's a deal that works for both sides. Chip Kelly gets a guy he's familiar with, a guy he's comfortable with at a position of need for the Philadelphia Eagles. Help on defense. They seem to have figured out their offense, but the defense under Billy Davis has been not very good. Whether it's in the secondary or the front seven, they've had a few bright spots in Fletcher Cox, Connor Barwin, Michael Kendricks, very good player, but the rest of that defense has been a bit shaky. Recently cut Trent Cole, Kerry Williams, so they have a lot of issues there. Their offense with Harriman's released, McCoy traded to the Bills, Jeremy Macklin's impending free agency. They're not. Some are, some aren't sold on Foles down there. It kind of seems like most aren't. A lot of Mariota talk. Would have to pay a pretty penny to move up from where they're at in the draft to go get him and secure him. I don't think you go to six per se or to five. You'd have to go right to two because you want to guarantee that's what you're getting at the top of the draft, and you're not going to do it this far out. I don't think you're getting it this far out because there's so many moving parts. It's such a fluid situation. I mean, free agency hasn't even started yet. There's been some dinks and dunks in terms of moves. The Bills so far making the most noise. The McCoy trade fills a huge void at running back. Going into it with only Bryce Brown, Dixon will probably return to his role. Primary special teamer, very, very seldom used in the base offense. Fred's situation is a little bit tenuous too now, I think. I don't know if his position is as secure as it once was. I think they'll want to add some youth to the running back position, minus Bryce Brown, who's only under contract for one more year, behind LeSean McCoy. Maybe they want to add a bigger back, a more of a power back. Fred given his age. Again, we always talk about his age, but the production has dropped off. Um, I don't know if he's not a special team guy. He's not going to offer you a lot in that way. I don't think he's going to uh, ultimate team guy. And I just think that maybe his time has come when you want to totally shift gears in terms of an organization. He survived a lot of coaching changes, a lot of upheaval, but everybody's time comes to an end. Kelly's did, Thurman's did, in his will, if it hasn't already. But very dynamic player, LeSean McCoy, a guy that I feel that the Bills will feature, under Greg Roman. I think that you look at a lot of the quarterbacks, and obviously the running back position's been devalued by the proliferation of throwing, the rules that they do lend itself to the passing game. But you look at later on in the year, a lot of teams, the Colts being one of them, a main one I think of, with a young quarterback who's the persona non grata, what everybody's looking for in a franchise quarterback with Andrew Luck, but they are looking to augment his play with the running game, fix their offensive line. And if you're a Bills fan, you don't have that certainty at quarterback, but you look at that and you say, well, obviously a team that still hasn't figured out a quarterback wants these things in place for what? To help you win later in the year. Because we've seen the Patriots do it. We saw them, how they bludgeoned the Colts twice. Once in Indy, again in Foxborough. And I won't even talk about the deflated balls, because I saw so many missed tackles in that game and guys getting run over. DeQuell Jackson and their other middle linebacker included. There was missed tackles at every level of that defense, and LeGarrette Blount destroyed them. Uh, it was a clinic, and the first game it was Jonas Gray. So there's going to be times where your quarterback can't, pay the freight. That's why you have the running back to carry the freight. So it's you do need that. And when you don't have the answer at quarterback, you have to go out and get a proven commodity at running back. And that's what the Bills did. You have to give something to get something. And they obviously feel very, very good about Preston Brown and Nigel Bradham going forward. I know a lot of people want to play the connect the dots and say that they're going to sign David Harris. I don't see it. That's Preston Brown's spot in the defense. That's going to be a position that he's going to man, middle linebacker. I don't think he's a 3-down linebacker anymore. David Harris, he was very good in his day, but to sign a 31, 32-year-old linebacker at whatever he's going to command, I don't think it's prudent, especially when you have other need areas like, maybe still a tight end, maybe some depth at the defensive line. There is only, how many downs do you have 3-down linebackers anymore? How many downs how many downs require 3 linebackers anymore? 1, 2, if that. I mean, it all depends. It's so situational now that the base guys are just not on the field enough. So you move something, you get something. I think it works out good for both parties. They move some salary and open up a position on their team. The Bills fill a need on their team and give back a position they feel like they have a glut at. So it's a good move, in my opinion, for both parties. Matt Cassel, he fills the need of veteran quarterback. He's got a ton of starting experience. He's definitely won some games. Won some games with the Patriots, obviously. Had one good season with the Chiefs, another decent one, but they didn't quite win as many games. I think he was 10 and something in his best year with the Chiefs. So they do that and bring in a guy they feel is comfortable starting. They feel comfortable with him starting if needs be, and comfortable being a backup, because he's been a backup in different places. He's done it well, and He's been he's been more than serviceable when he started. I mean, he's not a guy who's not going to knock your socks off. He's definitely a guy you need to support with a running game and tight end play. I think the Bills are going to go out and address tight end now at some point. They're not going to stand pat with Lee Smith, who's a free agent, Scott Chandler, Chris Gregg, whoever, and get that rest of that offensive line set. It is amazing that, Richie Incognito's in. Obviously, free agency hasn't even started, and the draft hasn't even come, and all this has been done. All these moving parts have fallen into place, and now they're not pigeonholed with that number 2 draft pick, that second round draft pick, to have to maybe look at running back early or in the 3rd round. They can be a lot more flexible in those two areas, and they've gotten good players there. Robert Woods, Kiko Alonso, to name a couple. So, we'll see. We'll see what Quanjo brings this year, with under different coaching, under a different voice in his ear, a different system, a different scheme that maybe will lend itself to a more productive player. Better teaching. He's more acclimated. He's still a very, very young guy. He doesn't turn 22 until July. So it was crazy that he was drafted as a 20-year-old player last year. So we'll have to see how this plays out. I don't know if they're done adding a quarterback. Maybe not. Who knows? Running back. Who knows? Who would have seen these 2 moves coming in under 24 hours? Nobody would have. And I think this is little things like this make sports fun. It makes, it's the reason you're a fan. Biggest reason I don't sit and write all those little depth charts I used to and put players in certain, because just today's like today. I was telling a couple of friends today, I don't buy jerseys for days like this. I mean, I appreciate them. They look nice, but I would never wear one. Most of all, I don't want to wear another man's name on my back. And number 2, I wear the logo. It's what I root for, is the logo, the jersey. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this defense going forward, how they mold it into what Rex wants, what he wants to do. I do trust him with the defense. I trust Whaley with defensive players. Hughes, obviously, his contract or his potential contract, people are going to talk about. I don't know if they're going to invest in him long term. With Mario's deal, the size of his contract, the deal they definitely probably want to give Darius. Kyle's probably coming up in a year. It's probably his last year as a Bill, possibly. Gilmore's contract in the near future, so they're going to try to work some spots, and we'll see what they do. It's such an interesting offseason so far, Bills fans. Who would have, doing the Marone video and looking back then, if you would have said Marone's going to quit, and according to him, he didn't quit, but he did quit. Rex Ryan's going to be the head coach. The Bills are going to trade Kiko Alonso for LeSean McCoy, and swing a trade for Matt Cassel. I know it's not sexy, but none of the quarterback moves would have been sexy. None of the, if it was McCown, everybody would have been Sanchez would have been like, oh, he's familiar with Rex. We would have talked ourselves into liking it. We would have talked ourselves into maybe liking. There's some fans that like the idea of Locker. And, they all just were kind of, we'll see, moves. So I don't know what to say, really. They're not sitting on their hands at quarterback. They're not saying they like the guys they have on campus when it's Toole and Thad Lewis. They're trying to add, depth to that position, which is important. It's an important position. You've heard me talk, and I know you guys that feel the same way I do. If you're a Bills fan or not a Bills fan, it's always quarterback, but you have to augment that quarterback. You have to have solid offensive line play. You have to have a decent running game. You have to have receivers that want to work with that quarterback and not want to do certain things. I mean, look at Miami. They're having issues now. Had to release Brian Hartline. The big contract Mike Wallace got. Maybe they have to release him. Maybe they want to release him. They feel like he's not a culture fit there. Their offensive line seemed to get fixed last year when they made the additions of Brandon Albert, who ended up getting injured, but they seemed to solidify that and got better play out of Tannehill because they didn't ask him to throw as much. They didn't ask him to stand back there and get hit as much. And he was a bit better quarterback this year than he had been in the past, but he's getting experience too, and that helps. So you have to, if you're not drafting the Andrew Lucks of the world, you have to try to fluff these guys up. And given what we know now about the way Marone conducted business at One Bills Drive, how can we honestly say any of those offensive players, young ones, particularly EJ, quarterback, was given the confidence or the tools to succeed? I don't think we can. I honestly don't think we can. And I don't feel that any player is untouchable. I'm not beholden to anybody on the Bills roster. If you're a team that is going on 15, 16 seasons without playoffs, no double-digit win seasons, this is the type of things that should happen. There should be upheaval. There shouldn't be we're standing pat like those those Giron days and it was some of the old buzzword that used to come out of Bill's Drive was the continuity. The continuity. No, when continuity is flawed, it's not continuity worth keeping. So I think I feel this is good, and I'm not trying to just say this as a fan. I'm trying to say this as a conscientious person looking at it with a non-biased view. I feel the trade helps out both, like I've stated several times. It helps the position of need. He comes in, he's immediately your starting running back. That you don't have to worry about that. You want to add depth, great. You can get that undrafted guy to come out of nowhere. And when you have a good quarterback, a great quarterback, like, for instance, like with Denver, they got, CJ Anderson came out of nowhere because they still had a second round pick invested in Monte Ball, but they have their quarterback in the interim, Peyton Manning, as long as he's there, is going to be the starting quarterback. The same thing with Indy, the same thing in other places. Look at in Arizona, the hell they had to go through last year with all the injuries at quarterback. Starting a guy that wasn't even on their roster in a playoff game, who had been on their roster previous years, but not in over a year, and is frankly not an NFL quarterback, but that's the position they were left in. And when Bills fans want to criticize the organization for not going out and signing a guy, these guys don't exist. These guys don't hit the open market. The good guys get locked up. That's why Andy Dalton has $100 million. That's why Kaepernick has $100 million. Jay Cutler, who might not even keep his job with Chicago. There's murmurings about him. There was Chicago Bears fans that wanted the Bears to sign McCown and cut Cutler again after all that. You sometimes have to take yourself out of the Bills box and go out and explore other not say you don't do that already. I'm sure some of you probably do if you're sports junkies like me, and hear other fan bases, the tenor of other fan bases, and I do that with the Patriots. I do that with the Jets living here in northern New Jersey. And I do it with the Dolphins just to, it's the direct competition. I want to hear what they might be doing or what their fans feel like they should do. And so it's interesting. It's a fun time to be a football fan. We're on the eve of free agency. We'll start hearing news and noise around the 7th Saturday when I guess teams can start negotiating per se, like that unofficial, official tampering that can and can't go on. I don't get all that stuff. But yeah, it's a fun time for any football fan, whether you're a Bills fan or any fan. So we'll see how rosters start to shape out. It's definitely, when it's the game without the game itself, and that's why I love the sport so much. There's so much that goes on. It's so fluid. So we got McCoy, Incognito, and Cassel. It's funny how their 3 moves so far have been on the offensive side of the ball, and they're probably not even near done. I'm very anxious to see how this offensive line gets shaped and who they feel is the best 5 on their roster. come late June and July when the glut of the guys are going to be there, that's pretty much going to be the guys, and maybe you see a piece, a camp piece here or there, or maybe a very few times you see a camp pickup late. The Bills have had a few of those actually with their punter last year. Hopefully we don't see a kickoff specialist. That would be nice, right? Have another roster spot open. There's been talk about them expanding the rosters to 55 and teams having all access to the 53 on game day. That would help. Saves a lot of confusion and a lot of, I don't know, if that's the 53 guys you have, that's just the guys you should play with on a game day. If those are the guys you have. I just don't understand the 46, but who knows. All right, Bills fans, have a good one. Take care. I can't wait for your feedback and comments on this and see what the tenor of your guys' mindset is. It's a trade that some people like. It's a trade that other people don't. Same thing in Philadelphia. But I feel like they have a guy that is a top 3 at his position, top 5 easily, and a guy that they could use for definitely a couple more 3 years. So we'll see what happens. All right, Bills fans, have a good weekend coming up. Going into Thursday after Hump Day, and free agency right around the corner. So I'm sure be a lot more videos come in, and really appreciate you guys viewing and subscribing. And go Bills. It's been a fun off season so far. Have a good week.